Welcome to the Sisterhood of Sweat. I am here today with Niki Riga. Niki Riga is a boutique fitness consultant and an industry expert who has coached hundreds of studio owners to build the businesses of their dreams through strategies centered on member acquisition, conversion, and retention. Last year, over 90% of her clients achieved their big end of year goals, which I can attest, including doubling auto pay memberships, paying themselves their target salaries, and expanding in new locations. She passionately preaches collaboration over competition and helps her clients connect with other studio owners in the collective to share ideas, support each other, and improve the boutique fitness industry as a whole. When one of us succeeds, we all get stronger. Oh, I say that all the time. I love that. So she is committed to providing high quality, free, and inexpensive resources to help studio owners hit their goals no matter where they are today. When she's not sharing industry strategies, you'll find her on an airplane with her laptop and her young son in an effort to show him more of this beautiful world, or at home surrounded by dogs. Well, love Niki. Niki is my business coach. She's amazing. And we talked about so much today. Collaboration was a big theme. What is the main mistake that she would love to save business owners from making? Different ideas and how to really get yourself out of a rut and trying things and realizing that our ideas might seem small, but in reality, when you put them into action, they're big ideas and so much more. This was such a great conversation for anyone that is in the entrepreneurial space or that has a big idea and that's thinking about it. And we also talked about how important it is to invest in yourself and how I've never, ever had one person say, I regret investing in myself. And that when you show up and you make a decision, I'm excited to welcome Niki Riga to the Sisterhood of Sweat.
Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. You guys have heard me talk about how important it is to invest in yourself and your dreams and your businesses, and that I've never known anyone to say, oh, I regret investing in myself. And so I decided that I would invest in a business coach. And that was Niki. And it was worth its weight in gold in just the first hour with her. I still remember when she said, oh, I'm going to be worth my weight in gold to you today because on Google it says you're not open. And
Oh,
I'm
that's
like,
right. We made a quick fix right away, didn't we?
yeah. And I'm like, what? Not open? How did you get into all of this? Because you're so good at it. How did you get into helping people in the gym space? And just tell everybody a little bit about your background.
So this was actually rather accidental, which sounds terrible. But let me describe it. So
I
when I
like
decided
accidental.
it was a happy accident. How about that? So I decided to open my fitness studio when I was 25. I was working through my master's, my MBA, and I opened my gym, and it's this giant, my parents and my husband thought I was going to open something like small and cute, and I just went full out because that's who I am as a person. And within the first year, I was like, this is harder than I thought it was going to be. Like I thought I was going to be set up with my business degrees. No, it was hard. So I started looking for a coach and found one. My very first coach, her name was Amy, and she helped me from the ground up, basically, even with like design. And I still reference her today. And I didn't think in my head, like, oh, that's what I want to be one day, right? Because I was a studio owner. So after I was done with my first coach, I saw a Facebook ad for my second coaching program. And I was like maybe 3 or 4 weeks in, and the owner of the coaching program sends me a private message during a group call and was like, have you ever thought about coaching? And I was like, oh, no, not really. She sends me an email and she's prepared. She said she was prepared to beg. She's prepared to give me whatever I wanted. But I was so excited to be asked to coach that I did not try for anything. I was like, oh, I'm in, sure. And that is how I accidentally started coaching. I did that for 5 or 6 years while running my own studio. And then when we moved, we sold my first business, we sold my studio, and a year later I opened Limitless. And it was just a really natural progression because it was everything I loved about owning a studio, right? Which is helping people reach their goals. It's that, but even bigger, I think, because now I get to work directly with the business owner who's working directly with the clients. So it feels even like more important, I suppose.
But you are from a family of entrepreneurs.
I am. We joke that we're serial entrepreneurs. Everyone in my family owns at least one business. I started working in my parents' business, one of their businesses, when I was like 10. And I would sit on the floor and I would file receipts. And I was paid actually really well. They paid me way more than I was worth. Way more than I was worth. And I would, put the receipts in the files. And then we have a family business that's 4 generations old of that where we commercial fish in Alaska. And my parents own a couple of businesses. My grandparents own businesses, my husband's family. This is just what we do. We're not good at working for other people, it turns out.
Well, when I was in middle school, we had to take these tests to see what your aptitude is, what you're good at. And I always scored the highest entrepreneur.
Well, that doesn't surprise me at all, knowing you.
Well, I didn't even understand what that was. I mean, in middle school, but I'm like, entrepreneur. Okay. But my husband has always owned businesses, and I've pretty much have worked for myself within businesses. And so I think being an entrepreneur is exciting, but it can be at the top, at the bottom, at the top, at the bottom.
You're so right.
And what is your advice to entrepreneurs out there to not just have feast or famine?
I should have invited my mom on this podcast because when I was sitting at the dining room table, home on like a break, and I was like holding my head in my hands, and I wasn't sure, am I going to open my first studio, which its name was Flex. Like, do I open Flex? I don't know. Yes, no. And my mom looks at me. She's like, here's my best advice I can give you. The highs are really high and the lows are really low. And you have to know intrinsically that you're okay with that. And you're not going to stay at either spot for very long. So can you ride the entrepreneurship ride of high, low, high, low, high, low? And at the time I was like, yeah, mom, like it's going to be fine. Right. And then I experienced it, and man, she was so right. I think the biggest, most important piece of advice I give people is to make sure that your identity is not entirely wrapped up in your business, because when you inevitably get your first, mean review on Google by someone who's just, being mean, or when it doesn't go how you think it's going to go, you have to be able to say, okay, that's not me as a person. That's the business, and separate yourself, which is so much easier said than done. Because I vividly remember my first negative review on Yelp, and the girl who left the review she'd never even saw me or know me. She'd never even been in my studio. She was walking in the parking lot, saw a blonde woman who she thought looked like me from the website. And she said, that woman looked like, a particular choice word. But that woman was not me, because I was out of town for those 2 months. And so I remember sitting in my car, just hysterically crying about this really mean review and telling myself, okay, that's not you. It's literally not you. Separate yourself. And I still do that today with Limitless. I'll be working on something, and maybe it's taking longer. It's not going very well. I have to be able to step back and say, okay, that's not you. You're just having a difficult time. Your business is having a difficult time, but that's not you as a person. So if you are listening and you have a business, separate yourself, because otherwise you're in for more hurt than you need.
And when you're all heart and you're putting your heart and your soul, and it's like
Totally.
a mission, that is hard to do, is to
Oh my gosh,
separate
so hard.
yourself and to not take it personally. And I know I try to remember the big picture.
Good point.
And when I remember what the, who I'm serving, what I'm there for, the big picture, and I think about what's going on that day, I realize that that's a small thing on the journey. And that helps a ton. And then also just recognizing that one person cannot stop your purpose or your destiny. And,
Totally.
like one person complaining about you, one person quitting you, one person that puts, a spoke in your wheels, so to speak, cannot stop you from what is for you and what you're here to do. And I think once you realize that, it really kind of frees you from getting caught up in one thing that goes wrong.
It's a long-term process, right? I don't think we're ever going to make it, quote unquote, to the point where, maybe someone cancels. I know even when I owned Flex, which was a huge studio, I would get a cancellation request and there went my day, right? I was like, oh, why would they cancel? They don't like it. What did I do wrong? And I'm like spiraling, right? It feels like rejection. And we are programmed as humans to avoid rejection at all costs. So I think this is a long-term process. Even in my second business, what I love about Limitless is that my clients will start with more calls a month usually, and then they will, I call it graduating into one call a month. And then sometimes we fix all of their problems. We don't have anything to do anymore. And they move to more like a quarterly. And even that I feel like, oh, like they don't need me anymore. Now I'm sad because I'm really invested in my studio owners. I'm really invested in your guys'
Oh my
studios.
gosh, we get invested. Yes,
Yeah.
totally
And then I'm like,
invested in
oh,
the success of your clients.
now they don't need me anymore, which is great, right? That's like part of my
Yeah.
process. Part of my job is to make you not need me. But then I feel, sad. So it's a long term. I can sit in this chair and be like, remove yourself from your business, but I think we are all still working through this. It is the best advice I can give. And I think it's also the hardest, is that you are more than the sum of your business's parts, right? Your purpose is more important than either one bad day or one good day, right? It's also easy to hit your goals and be like, all done, right? And then you start to backslide. And I've experienced that
Right,
too.
because it's too easy for you.
Yeah, you're like, oh, okay, moving on.
Yeah.
Like, where should I
Then
put my
you're
focus
like
now?
later, you're like, oh my gosh, I should have done this. I should have done this and
Hmm.
this. And I didn't realize that, you know, I'm gonna have a rain day. And
Totally.
you know, but
You don't stay on the high for long.
one of the things that you said that struck a chord with me was just thinking back to when you do have people, people are going to come and go in your business. And when you're invested in them, it's hard because you're connected personally. You feel, if your heart is in your business at all. But the thing that I realized is just because this person doesn't need your help anymore. Look at all these other people that are
Hmm.
right there that do need your help, that want your help, that are like so appreciative. Just focus on the people that are right in front of you. Like when
You'll
I
want to
started
be there.
out, I did not have a ton of money to advertise. I did not, it was that shoestring budget. I
Mhm.
think my rent was like $500 a
I was so
month.
jealous.
And I just remember thinking, okay, I might not be able to compete with this gym because they have this advertising budget, but I can focus on the people right in front of me. And what would happen then is they would transform so completely. Somebody would come in and say, instead of wanting to look at the menu of prices, they would say, I want what she had.
Hmm.
And they want the exact same thing, whatever you did to get her like that, and that, that transformation.
I love that.
And so to me, I think just recognizing some of those things is very powerful in your business.
I think it's especially important right now with social media and like that like comparison disease, really, right? And I am not immune to this disease,
I
but
know, me either.
studio owners will like pull up other studios and be like, oh, look how many clients they have, and look at their space, and look at their equipment, look at their social media. They're doing such a good job. And as they're trying to kind of mold themselves into what they think they should be doing because they're seeing the perceived success over there, then they forget that they were already doing a great job of serving their own clients. So that idea of focusing on who wants to be there and just making sure that you are giving the best possible service you can to those clients. Most of boutique fitness is word of mouth, right? Over 80% of leads come from word of mouth on average in our industry. So if you can just make sure that your exact clients, even if there's only 3 of them, are having the best possible time, that's such a stronger marketing tactic than, monkey see, monkey do someone else's Instagram, or trying to go after a community of people that is already being served by another studio. There's no space over there. It's too crowded, but there is space in the market as a whole. I don't think we could ever saturate the boutique fitness market. There's just too many clients who need us, right? But if we're all trying to serve in the same way, then that's when you saturate the market, and that's when advertising becomes a problem and budgets get really high. I mean, how high, how much can you spend on Facebook ads? The ceiling doesn't exist, right?
Right.
I would much rather, and you know this because you work with me, rather than spending money on external marketing, right? Concentrate on really curating what you do have and turning that into more leads and turning that into a better experience. And then you're not shelling out, throwing money into the internet is what I like to call it, right?
Now,
And that's a
one
really great
thing
point.
I do think is like what you said about the ceiling for the ads, is that the one thing that it does create, though, when I advertise or I have an event or a challenge, is awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody might be watching me for quite a while before they ever come.
I like to call them lurkers. They're just lurking, right?
Yeah.
Waiting for their opportunity, waiting for the right messaging moment. I'm not opposed to marketing in general, right? Marketing is important to get your name out there, but I think it needs to be done with a strategy, especially if you're marketing on Facebook or social media in general. It needs a strategy, a strong one, right? Not just throwing money into the internet. But I love how you'll have these people who follow you or who are lurking in the background for years and years and years, and then finally your messaging clicks. Finally, whatever you said, they heard it, right? My example of this is, it was our second or third. We were 2 or 3 years old, and we did a Beyonce celebration party, a Beyonce bar class. We were all dressed up in
That
like
sounds
leotards,
fun.
and I had this playlist curated by a DJ, and we were celebrating that we had just won Best in Silicon Valley for 2 categories. And in comes this client who I did not know, but she's wearing an original Founders tank top. And I was like, hi, where'd you get that tank top? And she was like, oh, I came to your booth. We did like a tent before we opened, weeks before we opened at the farmers market. She was like, and I loved the tank top, so I bought it, and I've just been like following you on social media for the last 3 years. I was like, what have you been waiting for? She was like, oh, I really like Beyonce. She became a
Oh.
full-time VIP member. I saw her like 1,000 times after that, but she had just been waiting in the background. So it is important to outreach, right? Because eventually you're going to connect. But if you concentrate too much on the external, then you miss the retention factor, right? And I'm always going on and on about retention, and your studio is so strong with retention, so I don't even need to tell you that.
I want to back that up for a second. Beyonce, what was this? Tell me about it. I got to hear
This was so I sent out a survey to my clients, because when we won Best in Silicon Valley, I was like, what kind of parties do you want to do? And someone threw out Beyonce, and I'm a huge Beyonce fan. Huge. So we had this bar class. I taught in heels. I actually taught in red bottom heels. Like, that is a tough class to teach in heels. There were leotards, there was glitter, it was a whole vibe. And it's one of my favorite memories as a studio owner. You know how we collect like our little snapshots of what made the job worth it? That was one of them for me. I'll never forget that class. But yeah, it was a nice way to celebrate. We're always celebrating at Flex, always celebrating something. That's one of my like words I live by, is celebrate.
So
We're always celebrating
everybody
something.
tried to look like Beyonce.
Yep, while doing bar. It was tough. Who knew
Okay, that
that many
sounds
leotards existed?
so fun. So fun. I'm having my second, well, I've had events, but my second event this year, or third, I guess, because we had a little black dress challenge and we had a Christmas party or a holiday party, and gave away a Peloton bike. And then we had the last thing, which was, shoot, now let me think for a minute. Oh, yoga spa day,
That's right. I'm
where
in
we
for the
gave
next one
away
of
those
those.
lavender eye pillows, guided meditation, stretch yoga.
That sounds like heaven.
So, oh, this lady told me she almost cried because she can't make the Galentine's and sip on Sunday. And this, now I brought in an actual massage therapist that's going to give neck and shoulder massages. And
I'm in.
yeah, right.
Sign me
Already,
up.
right. And also we'll do all the same stuff, but I'm making clean cocktails and my sugar-free heart sugar cookies, and we're gonna
Ooh.
hang out.
I love it. I want to go. Celebrating your members is so important. You always hear me talk about this, right? I'm speaking at IHRSA next month in San Diego, and my whole presentation is about celebrating your members and they'll stay forever, which is one of my favorite little chats to give, because we're often, as businesses, not just studios, right, but as businesses in general, we're often so concerned with where the next client is going to come from that we forget to pour all of our energy into our current existing clients, because retention is so much cheaper than acquisition. It costs you 50% less to keep a member than it does to find a new member. That's not a me quote, that's a Harvard Business quote. And it kind of became my whole like business model for both Flex and now for Limitless Studios. If I pour everything I have into my clients, then I'm much less worried. That's why I always waitlist, right? I'm much less worried about where the next client is going to come from. And there is inevitably attrition and churn in all businesses, but really focusing like on your upcoming Galentine's party, that is not something you had to do, right? It's not required. Your members weren't expecting it. But when they are like, if they fall off the fitness wagon, they're going to be much less likely to cancel now, right? Because they know that you pour into them. So they'll keep pouring into them too.
So good, so good. And also I love her group. She has a group, like, be all from all these fitness boutiques. We're all in this group. And so I was listening to what they were having ideas, and it was so funny because I had just been listening to a podcast about your big stupid idea and start listing them off. And so I came up with a whole thing for March, just because this lady wanted to know what she should do for March. So now I know what it is, and I'm just going to tell you guys. We're going to have a 7-day workout challenge. And you're going to get all of the workouts. I'm going to kick it off with a big workout virtually. And so you can join if you're virtual or you're in-house, and we'll have some prizes, and it'll be 7 days of really amazing workout. And on Saturdays, we're going to do 1,000 rep challenge. So be sure to look for this in the show notes, because you're all invited.
Oh, I love it. That idea of like coming together with my private clients, right, where we get to share ideas. I have like an intrinsic mission for Limitless Studios, which is collaboration versus competition, right? In our industry, we tend to compete against each other. We think that we are in direct competition. And what we should be doing instead is collaborating, because it is not us against each other. Really, it is, if it's any sort of competition, it's us versus the giant brands, right? Who have these $1 million marketing budgets. If every boutique fitness studio would come together and collaborate and say, hey, what are you doing? What works for you? Oh, I'll try that. Here's what works for me. We would be so much stronger as an industry, and we would be less sensitive to, what we just survived, right? What we just came out of. We would be less sensitive. We would be better shored up because we could be crowdsourcing ideas. So just even with my 25 private clients, I love watching you guys share ideas, because it doesn't make anybody weaker, right? It makes us all collectively more competitive. And I think that that's an important mission for small business owners, gym owners, even instructors. It's collaboration over competition. Competition is not helping you. It's just making you look over your shoulder and miss out on potential opportunities. So I'm glad you liked that event or that group.
I love that 100%. And I think that in the fitness industry, it is so cutthroat and so competitive. And I mean, trust me, I know, because I've been doing this since I was 21 years old, and I've done probably almost every hat in fitness. I've probably worn it at one gym or another.
Definitely.
So that part of me came up when I was in the group. And then I looked and I said, oh, look at so-and-so over there sharing her ideas. And
yeah, that's our first feeling, right? Is, oh, can't tell. Someone will take it.
100%. That was the very first thought
cutthroat
that I had. And then I realized, oh, no, this is collaboration. And also that is the mindset of scarcity when we're worried that there's not
100%.
enough to go around.
100%. And I think it becomes kind of like a self-fulfilling negative prophecy, right? Like that idea of, oh, I have to hoard my ideas because there's not enough to go around, when in actuality there's so much more than we need. Our industry is not going anywhere, right? Clients are always going to need really great trainers. They're always going to need someone to help their goals. I have a bunch of friends in the coaching space. We all coach the same industry, and even we share ideas, and we have like a group text, and we have a monthly call, and we're trading ideas. What are you seeing with your clients? What are you seeing in your area? What's working? What are you doing? And that makes us stronger, which then makes our client studios stronger. And it's that idea of collaboration over competition again. And it's unique, right? Because even the coaches in the industry are used to being like, nope, that was my idea. I got to tell you, all the ideas have been done. Nobody is throwing out something so groundbreaking that they shouldn't share. It's not possible. So instead, why don't you lend ideas, right? Why don't you volley them back and forth? There's so many great ideas and so many different kinds of studios, even in my private clientele group that you're in. It just makes everybody so much stronger. And I think more fulfilled, because studio ownership is lonely, right? Entrepreneurship is lonely. That idea that you have to like do it all by yourself, exhausting. And that's where burnout comes in. So, lean on somebody a little bit. Hey, I'm out of ideas for March. What are you doing? Right? That is the whole, that's the higher purpose behind Limitless. Yes, I want to coach you guys, and I want to walk through your businesses with you, and it fills my cup 100%. But the like higher purpose is for you all. Even if you didn't need me, you would have this community that you could lean into, that would make it so that your job and your day isn't as lonely and stressful, because you can lean on your other studio owners. It makes it, bigger than me, which is what we all want, right? As business owners, we want the business to be more important than just our one person.
And I love your mission.
Thanks.
I love that. I know forever, Kathy Savage, who was my fitness and competition coach, was always getting us to collaborate in an industry, in a competitive industry, because you're competing
it's one of the
against
most
each
competitive
other.
industries. Yeah.
And being a sisterhood. And she had that idea. And it is, what I remember the most about competing are all of the friends I made, and that I still talk to today, because we get each other. And so I love the whole idea of collaboration. What is one of the biggest mistakes that you see business owners making that you would like to help them correct?
Oh, this is an easy one. So let's give a little bit of framework. Nobody opens a yoga studio or a bar studio or a fitness studio because they love spreadsheets, right? Because they love their numbers, because they love any of the tax side or the number side. And what ends up happening is I'm going to use myself as an example of this, right? I open a multimodality studio, bar, bootcamp, yoga, because I love bar, bootcamp, and yoga. At the time, the business side behind it didn't even cross my mind, which is crazy because I had literally just graduated.
No strategy, right?
No,
Yeah.
I just graduated with my MBA, and here I am opening a giant business in Silicon Valley. Like, if Flex had failed, I would have bankrupted my family. There was no option of failure. But I had no real long-term, concrete, actionable strategy or any of those concrete, actionable steps. I was just winging it. I was just teaching great classes, crossing my fingers that people would come, right? And we all know that that is not the case. If you build it, they will come, not true. And I got to tell you, if you cross your fingers, they will come, also not true. The sales course that I'm currently working on to teach boutique fitness studios how to make sales in a way that is heart-based, right? The whole slogan of it is go from cross your fingers to confidently in control, because this is what we do. We cross our fingers and we hope for the best. And I have seen so many beautiful studios, so many wonderful studio owners close their doors, not because they didn't have the heart or the ability, they just didn't have the strategy. And it's so frustrating for me as a coach to watch these studio owners struggle because they have great ideas and they have so much potential, but they just need support. They need coaching. They need someone to say, here, let me help you. Just like what you guys do with your clients, right? Your clients come into you and they have a goal in mind. Maybe they're injured, or maybe they're postpartum, or maybe they haven't worked out in 20 years. And they're standing in front of you saying, hey, this is where I'm giving you. How do I get over there? I think fitness studio owners, everybody in the industry, don't forget that you also need someone to say, okay, here's where you're at. Let's get you to where you want to go, right? Don't do it alone.
It's well worth it. I know that we could tell ourselves, oh, that's so expensive, because you think you have all these other expensive, but it literally makes your money back like the first month. You're like, oh wow, that was so worth it.
Even I have a coach. I have two coaches, right?
I have two.
If you don't have a coach, you are not moving closer to your goals on purpose, right? With any form of strategy.
Yeah.
You're just treading water or running in your hamster wheel.
Yeah.
And hoping for the best, crossing your fingers. So I think the biggest mistake I see, if I were to sum it up in a neat little package, is a lack of long-term strategy with business fundamentals that is going to get you from where you are to where you want to go in a relatively straight line.
And you know,
perfectly straight, but
back to the big stupid idea thing. So I'm one of these people, like when I see something on paper, like I could see a workout and think, oh, that's not hard enough. And, you know, but the actuality is it probably was hard enough. Then I added it and made it harder. But like, but it's like you tell me, do this board and have them put stickers, you know, or whatever.
Yeah.
In my head, I'm like, grown adults won't want to do that.
Oh, but you are wrong, aren't you?
Oh, so I just want you to know that that was so wrong. And I've done it twice now. And I'm like, okay, why that works and why that's important. Even those small steps, it's actualizing their experience, that they're there, that they're being accountable.
That someone
it's
noticed.
Like a reward system almost in their brain.
Yep.
And they like seeing who all is coming. And it also shows them how often they actually attended.
Yeah, which is kind of a rude awakening sometimes as someone who is now on the challenge board, right? But at the root of it, right, you're building community, you're reinforcing connection, and you're preventing attrition. You're preventing die-off from these clients because you're telling them, hey, I see you. And so does everybody else, right? So it goes back to that root idea that I'm always harping on, is that it's part of a larger strategy to make your studio essential. That makes you recession proof. That makes you I fell off the wagon proof, right? That means that even if someone's going to be traveling for a month, they're less likely to cancel their membership because they don't want to lose their chance. If you can make yourself essential in someone's life, there's your business model, right? But you also need them to connect to each other
Right.
because
The
they're less likely to
community
lose.
aspect is what
Yeah,
I'm learning now about how powerful that truly
crucial,
is. Because
crucial.
after I do those events, everybody enjoys it so much. They enjoy that girlfriend aspect,
Mhm.
that sisterhood, you know what I mean? Like hanging out with
Well,
your
we need
girlfriends.
it. We get lonely, you know?
Yes, and they love that aspect. And then they want to show up at the workouts because they want to see their
They're
friend, you know?
friends. It
Yeah.
makes you it it oh it if everybody took that into consideration, our studios would be so much stronger because I ran with that at Flex. Flex's business or mission behind the scenes. Our first sentence was Flex is a community oriented studio first. And every choice I made went back to, does this support the community? Does this strengthen the community? To the point where members were in each other's weddings. I was invited to so many weddings. And at two of them, the bride stood up during her toast and talked about how Flex Fusion had changed her life and how all of her friends and her bridesmaids had met at my studio, which makes me cry every time, right? But
Oh, I love
that
that.
long
That's
term,
happened to me too.
those are lifelong members, right? They're not going anywhere. So from a
They're like lifelong friends.
yeah, they're these are bridesmaids and godmothers now, and it takes that your business is so much bigger, right? Goes back to that theme. Your business is so much bigger than you. Now that's never going away. And isn't that what we all want, right? We want to make a difference. We don't just want to help our clients say like lose 10 pounds or increase their flexibility. Like, yeah, that's like the action item, but that's not the goal. That's not why any of us are spending all of our time on our laptops, on Canva, on Instagram, trying to figure out how to do reels, right? That's not the why. That's just the because we have to. So
We would never be able to do this all ourselves. And that's the beautiful part. It's the scary
totally.
part, but it's the beautiful part. The
Yes.
beautiful part is that you invite more people along for the vision.
Mm-hmm.
And it's what makes the studio grow. So you have to be open to that. And I love the whole aspect of building community. I think it's a powerful place to be. I love the idea of the collaboration, you know, collaborating with other people. But also, I just want to go back to the aspect of no matter what you're doing, having a coach is that's been there, done that, that has a clue is the secret sauce for success because you don't want to learn everything the hard way, you know.
No, it's a shortcut, right?
Yeah.
And I say this as a coach, and people are like, yeah, like you're just trying to. But I have experienced it multiple times over, not just as a fitness studio, but now I'm working on that course, right? You know, the first thing I did, I hired two coaches, one to help me with the marketing and one to help me with the actual course building. And they were expensive. They are expensive
Trust me,
coaches.
I
And I
understand.
was like, oh, I don't know. Should I do it? Should I do it? Should I do it? And it came to the point where I was like, I can't afford not to, right? I've tried doing it myself. I've been spent the last 6 months trying to build this course by myself. Why? Like I know better, right? Within hours of signing into these portals or logging in for my first coaching call, I was like, oh, that's what I'm doing, right? Just tell me what to do. My husband is really high up in his career, and his coach, when I tell you the zeros behind his coach, which his company pays for, thank goodness, but she has worked with CEOs of Apple and Microsoft, and like this woman is like the puppet master behind Silicon Valley. She sent me a book recently and I fangirled. I told my husband, I'm not gonna say her name for her privacy, but I told my husband, I was like, oh my gosh, talking with your coach, because she did like a 360 where she talked with all of my husband's closest support system to like find more out about him. And I was like, I had like a celebrity moment. And then she sent me a book talking about collaboration, right? She sent me a book.
I want the name of the book.
Oh, I have to find it for you. I'll send it
Okay,
over for you. It
okay.
was about coaching, and it was just such a like big sister, little sister moment because she was like, hey, I see you. And she didn't like belittle what I do. She
I
was like,
love
I
to
see
hear.
that you're a consultant. Here's the book that I recommend for other consultants. I hope that this like it was like her way of saying, hey, I see you and I want to support you. And that goes back to collaboration, right? She could have been like, bah, look at these like little tiny potatoes over here. What does she think she is? She thinks she's a consultant, but that is not what she did. She like took me under her big sister wing and was like, here's the book that I recommend. Here's what I'm doing. Like, I see you and I'm proud of you. And when I tell you that I could have cried because I go from like this was Steve Jobs' business coach. And she's sending me a book. I my whole like life mission is women lifting up other women. That's why I work with women. That's what, and it was like a full circle moment for me. And you know what's crazy? She has a coach, right? If you want to get to where you think your like biggest competitor is, or that studio where you're like, oh, I wish my studio was like that studio. I guarantee you they have a coach. They're not doing it by themselves. None of us who are moving closer to our version of success are doing it by ourselves, because by yourself is just taking the scenic route. Take a shortcut. There's nothing wrong with shortcuts.
And I love that. And so it's so funny today because so I'm going to be speaking in New York at the Triad Theater, and
Mhm.
so I just did something that I brought me closer and gave me, I know what I'm going to be talking about, and it really gave me clarity, but I still need, so much more help in what I want to construct, and just I want it to be powerful.
Mhm.
And so I heard a podcast. I heard something about expansion, and sometimes like we get stuck in this imposter syndrome of like, when something is expensive, if you sit and you listen to all the thoughts and the things that go in your head, it really is just a little bit it's a value thing. It's like,
Definitely.
because I think money is an energy. It's like this energy. So like when I make a decision in the universe and I say I'm doing this, it's like the universe opens up. And I don't mean to be all woo
Totally
woo.
agree. No, I totally agree. I like to balance my woo with my spreadsheets, but I'm reading a very woo woo book right now and experiencing exactly what you're saying. You're telling the universe with your dollars and your focus, this is what I want. Please give me
Yes,
more of this.
you're making a decision, and it's almost like the moment you make the decision, you're doing that you're worth that you're
Totally
spending
agree.
that, you make it work. You make it work. Now, I'm not saying go, spend every ounce you have on something crazy, but I am saying there is something to that, that making that decision, it's a value choice. It's like I've had it for everything, but then the funny part is you never, after you thought about that extra 2,000 that you spent on something that was already maybe 5,000, I'm just saying, like,
Hmm.
you never think about that. Like, why was that such a leap, that extra little bit? You never think about it again once you've done it. You don't think
No,
about it. You don't think about it anymore.
the risk.
And it's just the risk, and it's just the decision of I am the person to do this. I am going to do what it takes. I am going to do the thing.
The
And
accountability is scary, right?
it is so, and so I see it in myself every time. Like when I did the Bodyscape magazine, who am I ready to step on this cover? Like, am I ready to shoot for this? Because I know that it's a big statement. It's like putting yourself out there
Mhm.
majorly.
Mhm.
But I thought I really want to reach 1 million women with my message.
Oh, I
And
love
I
that.
can't do that hidden under a barrel.
It's
And
scary. Scary to put yourself out there.
shining your light and your message and speaking on a stage, though I was always afraid of public speaking. So I need the help. And so I was just thinking, do I meet with her an hour? Do I join this 12-week course, though I've already done it? Do I do the Illumina? The decisions.
Mhm.
And then, I listened to 2 podcasts, and they were both on expansion. and being called. And I'm like, this is like a no-brainer. I need the help. I'm going to be speaking June 22nd and 23rd. I'm going to go for it. And
I
I'm
love
just going
it.
to figure it out later.
I agree. I agree. And the more support you have, right, is going to make that whole process a lot less painful. I think we have this like idea in mind that it has to be a struggle, right? We have to have our underdog story. Struggling makes you stronger. Yeah, but you don't have to, right? You don't, we don't have to struggle by ourselves and for it to be this whole miserable drag out. A lot of times when I'm on client calls, one of the first questions I ask people is, are you paying yourself? And a lot of times they're like, no, but it's okay. Why aren't you paying yourself? Well, because, I'm not ready, or the business needs it, or I will tell them, start today, $5, $100, $1,000, whatever it is. Start today so that you can start saying, no, this is not a public service. I am putting out into the universe, or putting in front of myself the fact that this is a business and I am worth it. And I'm going to take that risk on myself, right? It doesn't have to be a struggle. It can be both. It can be great and challenging, but it doesn't have to be painful. Get that idea out. I know that we live an underdog story, but you don't have to be an underdog.
And when you make that commitment and you put that money down,
Now
you're a
you have
lot,
to succeed.
yes, you're a lot more closer to doing it. You're a lot more serious about it. And I think sometimes that's what it takes to do the big things in life.
I know that I have had many a night where I was up late, like cramming because I had a meeting with my coach the next day and I didn't want to show up without my homework done or empty handed and be like, well, I didn't do anything for the last 30 days. So yeah, accountability, just like we have with our clients, is what we need for us too. And if that's not a coach right now, tell your significant other, tell your studio owning best friend, tell your mom, tell somebody, this is what I'm going to do. Tell your clients. That way you have that accountability and you're telling whoever will listen, the universe involved included, this is what I'm doing. Here it is. Get ready for it, right? It's the first step.
Love it. Love it so much. This has been so good today. I've so enjoyed just talking to you. And
Too. It's been fun.
yeah, and I'm sure the audience will just love this episode because it was just so real. It's always nice when you have an episode when you know the person,
Yeah.
because I think the conversation just flows so easily. And one of the lessons I've learned in my podcasting is that you think it's going to be this big name that gets you the downloads. It's always a conversation like this one that we had today.
I totally agree. I think people can tell if it's real, right?
Yeah.
And thank you so much for having me. It was nice to
Yeah.
just chat. Normally you and I are on, we've got that hour and we're like, okay, let's snap out our strategy for the month. And today we just got to chat. So thanks.
Yeah,
That was
it
fun.
was really awesome. And Nikki is an amazing coach, you guys. So where can they get a hold of what you're laying down, get a consultation of some sort, get a hold of you on social media?
So the website has a ton of free resources as well. So if you're a studio owner and you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready for coaching, but I need help, I write 2 articles a month that is based on what we are dealing with in an industry. Right now, we're talking about staffing problems. So it's yourlimitlessstudio.com. It's YOUR limitlessstudio.com. And then on Instagram, also a ton of free resources there because I believe in over supporting. It's your_limitless_studio. So both of them are super active. So if you need any support, that's where to go.
Well, it was awesome just getting to spend the hour with you today. And I
It was
hope you
fun.
guys, hope everyone enjoyed this. Let us know what resonated with you. And as always, keep on keeping on, everyone.
Thank you.